Hi everyone, welcome to Let's Talk Tunnelling podcast. I'm your host, Dallas Adams, and today I have with me Ormond. Kia ora, bro.
Kia ora,
bro. The reason why I wanted to do podcasts and get into tunnelling and talk about tunnelling is because I want to educate people on how it is for people like yourself, myself, and even the generation before us that we can almost match up for the generation now. So I want to educate them in any way we can.
A lot of
with our
educating to be done in that.
A lot of educating for sure. But I suppose if I get guests on like yourself, and I really appreciate you being the first one, and the reason why that and why I wanted you to be the first one is because you're a massive influence in me when it came into tunnelling for my first tunnel job. Had some fun, definitely have. So let's talk about you and your tunnelling. So, I don't know, what was your first tunnel job?
Our first tunnel job, it was grouting liners on the prospect down in Sydney. There was a lot of old fellas in there. Well, they're the old fellas. When I was first in there, I was the young fella. But now, I'm looking at today, I'm the old fella and all these other fellas are the young fellas. So, she's a big, turned around. But, it was a good job, 12-hour shifts. Sometimes we'd be on one hole for about 2-3 days, 3-4 nights. And
so what brought you here? What brought you to Australia and obviously the tunnel job?
Coming to Australia, well, because we were on the fishing boats, they cut the season and the quota in half. So we're only working 6 months of the year, and the crayfish were pretty low then. And then Manu, one of the old uncles, he was pretty high and had a lot of mates in the tunnelling, so he asked us if he wanted to come back, because we originally went up to Emerald for look, cousin's 21st, so we went down to Cole. It wasn't too bad down there, eh? There's big toys they were playing on. He asked us if I wanted to come back. I know, I'll just have a look at home first. Anyway, we went home for a month, and then we come back. And then it was probably we come back over in March. Probably about 4 or 5 months later, we got to start at Prospect. And
Prospect, your first job?
Yeah.
So what were you filling in time doing prior to that then, those 5 months?
We used to work over at the airport in the bond stores, eh? We get all the freight from the bond stores and just send it out all over Sydney and that.
Cool.
Buggered up that a few times. Oh, well.
So rocking up in 94, okay, you had 5 months in Australia doing that job out at the airport, and then you got your start. And what? Medical, then induction. Can you describe your first impression when you rocked up?
Young man out of the old bush, big city. The tunnel, it's hard to describe. I sort of just like a big tube, really. So the first few days it was pretty easy because we were just sitting around doing nothing, and this is pretty easy. Grouting liners, getting it all sent down, but when we hit the next tunnel job, she was good, eh? You just full on, 12 hours, 8-hour days, just going hard with all the boys.
So that prospect job, what was it? What do you mean grouting? So there was a TBM job or a roadheader, or what was a drill and blast?
TBM job. They had finished all the excavation. They had concrete liners in there.
Oh, so the tunnels, you come in, back inward?
Yeah. Sort of back inward.
Yeah, okay, fine.
No electricals. It was just, they had big voids at the back. Because it took them a while, as they were pouring the concrete behind the liners, it took them a few pours just to get all the measurements right and all the concrete right. Some voids back there were about 2-3 days in just one hole pumping grouting,
So that's behind the segments you're talking about. So obviously now we pump them as we go.
Yeah.
So back then they didn't, or there wasn't enough and the voids were there, so they detected the voids, and then you had to come back or you were employed to grout them.
Well, we missed the excavation, but I thought, my understanding was they went through with the TBM and they just followed through with the culverts. And I think it was about a 3.2 diameter.
What was that job? Water
for the Sydney Water Board, yeah.
Right.
So I was just pumping it from Prospect all the way into the city and that. Good fun.
And your first, this is good then. This is interesting because I didn't know that. I actually thought you were on roadheaders your whole time. So this is good. So your first impression was just a job at the end of the day, really? You were just in a tube and you were grouting and working those shifts. Going back then and to nowadays, what do you think?
Oh, lots changed, eh? Lots changed. Because back when we first started, all we had was a superintendent and his shift bosses. Each shift had its own shift boss. The fellas that run the job. Everything went sweet, you know. Oh, you had your engineers and the people in the office, but you never even saw them or heard them. But now, oh, you see everybody now. You know, you got ladies. It's good having the chicks in the tunnel and that coming through as engineers and that, but you know, you got hygienists, like make sure you don't spill oil and all of this on the water. There's safety. Safety's big now. Safety's real big. When we were back there, safety wasn't, you know, it was just excavation, go. But 25 years, yeah, there's been a lot of changes, eh? A lot of changes.
Righto. When you say that then, most challenging tunnel job, you reckon, like, yeah, most challenging job that you've been a part of or been on or, you know, worked in?
They all had their own challenges, eh? But it's hard to single out one. Probably Cross City might have been one, because we were going over one another and different drives going in with it. That was probably the first tunnel we had about six or seven roadheaders all excavating at once. At one point there was a roadheader over the top of us, only about 6 to 9 meters above us, you know. So that would have been about the first one. The ones before that, there was only 2, maybe 3 roadheaders going, you know.
Well, that's interesting, man, because like I said, Cross City, well, we talked about it earlier, but Cross City was my first tunnel job, and if that's your most challenging job, that's good, because when I got there, I was very daunted, and I didn't realise how challenging it was, and I was probably like you when you rocked up to that first job in Prospect, but having you fellas around and having your time prior to that job, that's definitely a bonus, I suppose, when you look back at it.
Yeah, because that would have probably been only our second roadheader job, I think. I think
But a lot of you come off the M5, didn't you?
M5 and then the M2. Well, our second operating job was probably the M5. Oh, second one would have been the M5. The first one would have been Eastern Distributor. Yep. And then, probably going on to the third one.
Right. So what was your first job as a roadhead operator?
That was Eastern Distributor with our superintendent there. Yep. Good superintendent. Hard on the boys, but fair on the boys. If you bug it up with him, he'd let you know. But you know, that was it. He'd let you know, and then you wouldn't do it again.
Yep.
Yeah.
So coming into Cross City, you had a few years under your belt with cutting, but to me, I think you're the best operator I've ever seen on the cutting.
I watched a lot of good operators before me. There was a few fellas for me, Berkey, Penchy. You know, you'd ask them, they keep all the little good ideas to themselves, but as you're watching them, you're just picking up little things they did, and you just incorporate into your cut system.
Yeah.
So I was just watching these fellas who'd been on a few years than I have.
Yeah.
So once you sort of picked it up, once you had a pattern, you have a pattern, and then once you watch out everybody else's pattern, you can sort of take a little shortcut from his one and that one and just chuck it into yours, you know.
Well, I remember you saying to me when you taught me, or you were showing me, you know, I was like you, I suppose, just watching you, you know, getting out of my truck, going down and just sort of seeing your movements. And you always said never waste a movement.
Yeah.
You know, and I suppose this is why I wanted to get you on, and there's quite a few people I want to get on too, and to share that, because you shared it with me. As soon as I showed interest in wanting to be a roadhead operator, you talked about that. I remember it vividly, you saying never waste a cut. So what's the
thing with that is, it's all about the excavation and the meters for the fellas up the top, you know. So even if it's a 200 mil cut back the other way, you're always cutting rock and you're always causing dust. So when you're just cutting air, you're getting nowhere, you know. You know, a 5 minutes here and a 5 minutes there, over a period of 2 years, you add all of those up, there's probably about a week of excavation or a few days of excavation. You're just cutting air, you know. So that's why I just said every stroke, you just make sure you've got dust and rock dropping.
Right. So when you said you watched operators,
yeah,
and then you added, or you used your knowledge or whatever, how do you get to that stage? What are you looking for in a cut, and then how do you better it? How do you look at something better? How do you get to that?
Like I said, you got your pattern, so you're sumping in and you're just watching how these fellas sumping in, whether they're sumping in a bit higher than you do. Like I used to start right on the floor, but a lot of fellas start a little bit higher. And I just found out when you sump a little bit higher, you're not fighting with a lot of dirt. Because when you're on the floor, all that dirt's there. So if you come up about 800 or 500, you've always got a big hole to go into. And all that dirt, as you're coming back one way, it's just coming dragging back onto your apron. Whereas if you're just going into that hole, you know what I mean? It's tight, but if you're going into that, you've got a lot of play in it. It's easier on the machine, and it picks up a lot of time, you know.
So I remember, like, because obviously when I learned with you, we didn't have the guidance system.
Oh yeah.
So I remember the transition. Obviously, Cross City, we didn't have it. Yeah. We went to Lane Cove, and I remember that Mitsui getting built at Mid Tunnel there.
Mm.
And obviously, you were part of the build because that was your machine, and you were heading down. You know, I wasn't the spare operator, but you knew me, and you knew very well that I'd be keen. But I remember when we started that heading, and we're heading down that ramp. There was always you always second guessed the guidance. So obviously, it was that transition period.
Yeah.
Just you having to trust that guidance.
Because
nowadays everyone's got it. Like everyone's used to it, and when they come on to operating, they've got the guidance. So what was it like for you, that transition between cutting by eye and then having to go by this?
To me, it was just getting lazy, you know, because you're not watching your face. You're watching a little picture. But you get lazy because you're not watching the rock, and you're not. Oh, you have a look at the rock, but you're not watching what the rock's doing, you know, because you're a bit of dust there, and you're watching this computer. Shall I go there? But it took a little bit of while to get used to, but eventually you do get used to it, like everything.
Yeah.
But these days, a lot of these operators rely on it too much, you know.
Yeah.
Some of them, you just need to cut the face off. No guidance. What do I do?
Yeah.
Just cut a bit high, cut a bit less, and then. But yeah, no, the old eye's not as good as it used to be, though.
we talked earlier about about jobs, and what would I obviously told you my best job I've been on, and that was Lane Cove, and there was a lot of reasons behind it. You know, you talked about the challenge of Cross City Tunnel, and I felt that being my first tunnel, was very challenging. The environment obviously challenged me as well. Working in the city where I'd been working out at mines, and came to the city for a bit of a party and a good time, but having to work in the city was a challenge, and I suppose that's what threw me. Going to Lane Cove, it was a bit out, it was out of the way a bit. We had and we had a good crew. We had a good crew. So what was your best tunnel job that you can
Lane Cove would have been one of them, but I'm thinking we had a job up the Blue Mountains there, but McConnell Dow was a joint venture, McConnell Dow and Obayashi. TBM job, 8-hour shifts. It practically as our first major tunnel. That was probably going into 95, that one, end of 94, 95. Everything was just there, the gear was there, you had your super, you had your shift bosses, and everything just went smoothly, That was our first TBM job. 8-hour shifts, like I was saying. But right from the top, it just went, because a couple of jobs after that, we'd run out of rail on other jobs, or we'd run out of this, but that job, we just had everything there just ready to go, There were
what do you think makes that happen, or that go like that? What's...
To me, I suppose it's just the bosses in the office and whoever's organising all the gear,
What about the experience of the guys on the ground? Was Was it everyone experienced, or did you have the green fellas coming in, and how did they adapt?
A lot of the boys were all pretty much in there for years. But the thing is, the boys could only say so much. We need this, we need that. But their job mainly was just to bang that hole, you know. Everything else, because you have your little fellas in the office. You'd not see them much down the tunnel. But they'd be in the office organising all of this. So the boys sort of left it all up to them and the shift boss. But with that mountain job, there was sort of just always the gear right there, you know. And everyone got along with everybody. And, you know, as you do, a couple of niggles between shifts here and there. And
I suppose it was sorted out around the back, eh?
It was sorted out around the back, and it was sorted out at break shoot parties and Christmas parties.
Right, let's go to the next one then. The funniest moment then. The funniest moment in tunnelling.
There's been a couple. We had one chick on the Clem 7. She was a young Geo. From overseas, England, I think she was from. Anyway, her and fella Matt were walking up one of the drives along the vent can. I've come out and then I've come back in for some reason. I've seen Matty. He's walked past the vent can and I'm wondering where the old Geo chick is. And then I've looked up and all I could see were these feet hanging out the bottom of the old vent can, eh? The vent can's caught her bag and just sucked her into the... sucked her in. Oh, if she hears this, I think she won't know who she is, but we'll just leave it at that. It was pretty funny.
Hardest moment, bro. What's your hardest moment in tunnelling? You know, like, you know, I consider tunnelling a pretty tough job, pretty tough environment. What do you reckon's been the hardest for you?
That's a hard one, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just probably now it's watching all these young fellas come through, you know, and you're trying to tell them, but it's that X or Y generation, whether it's all sort of stuff like this, you know, cameras and phones and technology, and all they want to do is just walk around the tunnels and walk around holes like this, you know, and it's only going to take a split second one day, they're on the phone, something's going to come along and go bang. But that's the stink part about this job. It's got to take something like that for something like that to be fixed, you know. So that's probably
hard for you.
Yeah.
That's good, man. What about the fondest? What's your fondest memory or achievement?
Just the friendships we've made, eh? People we've known and people we've lost.
Yeah.
That's probably about the best.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We've had some great achievements, though. I know. I definitely talked about it earlier. You know, those breakthrough parties in the days and getting the families along and having, you know, those times together.
That was a good one, that Lane Cove, because that man that ran that job, he was really family orientated, eh? I think he played for those Hawks, the old AFL fella or something.
Yeah.
He had that job running real good, eh? Yeah. And just to bring the family in on occasions and take them down the tunnel and have tug of wars and you know, just get everybody involved in that.
Yeah.
That's a good memory, that one, eh? Yeah.
The other reason why I wanted this podcast is to capture those stories.
Yeah.
And not to take it away from you, but I have a story about you that, you know, hopefully you can elaborate on now. When I first met you, you know, I considered you, like I said, the best roadhead operator I'd ever seen, the nicest fella I'd ever, you know, happily been worked with and everything like that. But you weren't too bad at rugby either.
Yeah, no, I had my moments. Oh, we had a trial. Oh, we're going back 24, 25 years now. Had a trial for the old Māori All Blacks in there, but I think we had our wind-up that night, eh? It was a good wind-up too. Well, we went to...
Did you wind up your rugby career?
We rounded it up on that wind-up. Yeah, we went to it. Me and mate, we parked up. We just fell asleep, eh? We were buggered. We woke up. Cars were just everywhere. I looked at them and, fuck this, bro, let's go. You know, so we may have, we may not have, but
Yeah,
you know, no regrets there though. Eh?
Yeah.
But no, I had a couple of good rugby players when I was at home. The old cousin,
Yeah.
he could have gone all the way.
Yeah.
But it was just like home.
Yeah.
You know, I was just happy playing for Mahia. You know.
Yeah.
That was all I wanted to do. Put on that maroon jersey and then.
What about there was a trip down south you could have had? Was that?
Yeah. We could have gone down to the old Otago Highlanders when they were. I think they signed up that what's that Lucy's name? Tan Randall.
Tane
Randall.
Yes.
We could have sort of gone down there.
Yeah, because he's from Hawke's Bay too.
Yeah, he's a Hawke's Bay man. Yeah,
that's
both
right. Actually, quite a few of them. Wasn't Timu from your way
Timu
too?
was there. Stewie Foster.
Yeah.
Cookie Green.
Yeah.
But young, just playing for my home team.
Yeah.
Homesick. Didn't want to go anywhere, so you know. I think the old man was a bit buggered off on it, but
good.
I was happy doing what I was doing, you know. But no regrets. Maybe a little bit here and there, but I was happy pulling on my maroon jersey every Saturday. Yeah.
No, good one. What about a story in tunneling that you can share with us?
Yeah, there's a few. It's just thinking of them, mate.
Yeah.
You know, because they're there, but sometimes it just takes someone to just say something to bring that story on. But the only story is just all the memories and everyone that we've come into contact with it, you know.
I was telling your young nephew the other day, I said that on day shift, I used to ride my bike in from Randwick and I used to come into Cross City and I used to pass this little dairy just in Paddington there. But I used to stop in there and get the paper. And I used to get cream donuts. Remember those cream donuts? Yeah. And I always get us some.
And all the old boil ups our uncle used to cook us. So I'd take the greens out and just smother it with
Well, that's another thing with you. You don't like green stuff. I remember that.
Not now.
Yeah.
Oh, now it's a bit different. Now I sort of warmed up to them.
Yeah.
But I'd take them out and I'm watching you. I'm going, hey, you ruined it with all that tomato sauce.
Yeah, no, that's right. But I was saying to your young nephew, I was saying, you know, we just had a little crib room we used to drag along, and we used to clean it ourselves. Well, attempt to, you know, we weren't the best cleaners, but you know, get all the rubbish collected all, and have our smoker down there on the run.
On the run, bro. You eat them on the run.
Yeah.
A lot of these fellas don't realise at this stage, you know.
Yeah.
They got to have their half an hour or whatever, you know. But just eat it on the run.
Yeah.
But that's that generation
now.
That's
that generation, man. Looking back, all right. Now this is, you know, goes for both of us really. We could probably both answer this, but if you could go back 25 years to say, not so much prospect because you're on the grounding crew, but your first excavation job, what advice would you give yourself if you could, like?
Yeah, knowing what I know now, put a dust mask on and save your money.
Save your money.
We pissed and smoked that money up against the wall, a lot of it, eh?
Yeah.
But probably just wear a dust mask, eh? Or just be wary of the dust and the surroundings around you. Don't play on your phone and in the tunnels, you know, because it's just going to take a split second and something could come around the corner and you're looking at it. So, yeah, wear a dust mask, bro.
No, good on
but
you.
yeah, just enjoy it. Yeah, it's been good to me.
Yeah,
it's been real good.
Awesome, bro.
Yeah, bro.
Well, bro, like I said, I appreciate you coming along. This has been massive. You know, let's talk tunneling, and I think we can tell our stories, how it is, how it was for us. No shit here, you know, and you know, hopefully people can learn from it.
Yeah,
you know, we'll make this into you know, learning material. A lot of it I want to you know, and that came about with my father. You know, he spent 47 years in this industry. I want to you know, he gave a lot to this industry. Same with ourselves, I suppose. So you know, I want to create this, create an opportunity to carry those generations, our generation, and share it with this next generation, like you say. But bro, awesome. Thank you very much.
No worries, Del. Anytime, bro. Anytime.
Well, let's talk tunneling. Episode 1. So keep listening now, and we'll get on to episode 2 very shortly. Thank you.